The first few seasons of Hell's Kitchen aren't known for elite chefs. Ramsay calls the shots, while Scott Liebfried and Mary Ann Salcedo put out fires and fix rookie mistakes.
We're Chef Ramsay's sous chefs. That means we're second in command.
Shift after shift, Mary Ann holds the line until it wears thin. By season 3, she's had enough. The strain shows early. Season 1, episode 3, shot in 2004. This was the episode that gave us Hell's Kitchen's first shocking walkout. And Mary Ann was right in the center of it all. Now, to understand why this was so significant, you need to know about Jeff. The finance manager with no kitchen experience was struggling from day one. During this particular dinner service, Jeff was falling apart on the meat station, and two internationally acclaimed food critics were sitting in the dining room watching the disaster unfold. Jeff had just sent up lobster spaghetti that was completely wrong. One dish had no lobster, and the other had way too much. When Michael had to jump in and help him redo the entire dish, Jeff started making excuses.
Making too much for somebody who's never been on a line before.
Now, most people might have let it slide. After all, it's a high-pressure situation. Nerves are running high, and everyone's struggling to keep up. But Mary Ann wasn't like most people. She caught Jeff mumbling his excuses under his breath, and she wasn't having any of it.
Jeff, do you want him to cook your meat for you too?
What do you want me to do?
Mary Ann called Jeff out for his attitude, and tensions immediately flared between them. However, Jeff wasn't done making poor decisions, as the service continued to spiral out of control, with the red team serving only 2 entrees in 2 hours, and customers getting frustrated. Gordon was forced to lay into Jeff about his performance. That's when Jeff made the biggest mistake of his Hell's Kitchen career.
You're an asshole.
What was that? What did you just say?
What are you waiting?
I want you to say it louder. I want you to say it louder, Jeff.
Mary Ann didn't let Jeff get away with disrespecting her boss behind his back. She called him out publicly in front of everyone and forced him to either own his words or back down like a coward. Even by Hell's Kitchen standards, this was unprecedented. You could feel the tension in the air as everyone processed what had just happened. Jeff immediately took off his jacket and walked out of Hell's Kitchen for good, becoming the first contestant in the show's history to quit mid-service. His exit interview never even aired, which shows how badly he had burned his bridges. That confrontation set the tone for every season that followed. Mary Ann had established herself as someone who wouldn't tolerate attitude problems, and every contestant who came after Jeff knew exactly where the line was drawn. Moving on to season 2, and the very first episode started as an absolute disaster. We're talking about a service so bad that Gordon literally had to shut down the restaurant after 3 hours. At the center of this chaos was Polly, a contestant who had birthed 6 sons and claimed she could handle Hell's Kitchen. Unfortunately, confidence doesn't translate to cooking skills, and Polly was drowning on the appetizer station from minute 1. Her first risotto was overcooked, glued to the plate, and missing the mushrooms entirely. And Chef Ramsay was pissed off. But Mary Ann didn't just stand back and watch Polly struggle. She rolled up her sleeves and got in there to help, trying to give Polly the support she needed to succeed. Even with Mary Ann's help, Polly continued to struggle. She sent up a second risotto that was bland and had to be trashed. Then a third attempt. Then a fourth. After an hour and a half of this torture, Gordon finally pulled Polly off the appetizers entirely. But later in that same service, we got to see the flip side of Mary Ann's leadership. Virginia was having her own meltdown on the meat station, sending up undercooked Wellingtons, and completely lost about what was even on the menu. Then Virginia made a critical mistake. She couldn't find the lamb sauce that was supposed to go with one of the dishes. In her panic and desperation, she grabbed veal stock and tried to substitute it for the missing lamb sauce. Mary Ann shut it down immediately.
I have a whole bunch of lamb stock
This is
and
veal stock.
that's all I got
lamb
for...
sauce. This is veal stock. There's no way in hell we can pass this off as lamb sauce.
She refused to let standards slide. Virginia was so desperate that she actually left the red kitchen and went into the blue kitchen to ask Keith if she could borrow some lamb sauce. Keith refused and told her to go back to her own kitchen. Mary Ann's decision was absolutely correct. In a professional kitchen, you don't just substitute ingredients because you can't find what you need. If you allow one shortcut, where does it end? Pretty soon, contestants would be substituting whatever they felt like whenever they ran into problems. Both moments happened in the same service. Mary Ann helped Polly when she was struggling with skills and technique, but she stopped Virginia cold when she tried to take a shortcut with standards. That's the mark of a leader who knows when to support and when to enforce. But Mary Ann's most memorable Season 2 moment came in Episode 4, and it had nothing to do with cooking technique or kitchen standards. This was pure psychological warfare, delivered with the kind of flair that only Mary Ann could pull off. The red team had just lost the lunch service challenge to the blue team by a single point. They were forced to clean up the absolute disaster left behind by a dining room full of screaming children who had made a mess on the floor. Sarah was inhaling helium and making weird sounds while supposedly cleaning. Rachel was furious because she had busted her rear to help the team win, only to watch Sarah's attitude cost them the victory. The tension between the two women was reaching a breaking point. For lunch, Mary Ann brought out what should have been a perfectly good cake for the red team. But instead of setting it on the table like a normal meal, she did this.
All right, you guys hungry?
Yeah,
you want
sure.
something to eat? There you go. Eat that.
While controversial, this move reinforced the psychological aspect of competition. In Hell's Kitchen, losing doesn't just mean you have to do extra work. It means you don't get to enjoy the basic comforts that winners take for granted. Even something as simple as eating your lunch becomes a reminder of your failure. By Season 3, Mary Ann had established herself as a voice of reason in Hell's Kitchen. After the first 2 seasons, she began to really show us how she could spot potential in unexpected places and still maintain impossibly high standards, even when others were ready to compromise. Such as Episode 1 of Season 3, which gave us one of Mary Ann's most iconic reactions.
Something is burning.
During prep for the opening service, Joanna was exhibiting some of the worst leadership skills ever seen in Hell's Kitchen. She was pushing Julia away from prepping items, arguing with Bonnie about cooking the risotto, and creating complete chaos in the red kitchen. Bonnie was so frustrated she wanted to hit Joanna. The team was falling apart before service even started. And Mary Ann? The episode specifically mentions that both Melissa and sous chef Mary Ann were concerned over the lack of harmony with the women. This wasn't Mary Ann getting angry about technique or effort. This was her recognizing that Joanna's leadership was actually destructive to the team. After 3 seasons of watching contestants struggle and succeed, Mary Ann could spot the difference between someone having a bad day and someone who was fundamentally approaching leadership wrong. But Mary Ann's most brilliant moment came in Episode 3, during the Army and Navy Service Challenge. This was breakfast service, and the teams were cooking for military personnel, Navy for the men, Army for the women. When service began, Mary Ann made a decision that would change the entire dynamic of the competition.
I'm looking at you to be the leader today, right?
I do like being a leader in general, not just this morning.
She urged Julia to step up as a leader, since the latter cooked breakfast food for a living. Now, so far into the season, Julia had always been the underdog. She was a short-order cook from a Waffle House, with no formal culinary training. Most people looked at her as the weakest link on the red team, but Mary Ann saw something different. She recognized that Julia's experience cooking breakfast food for a living made her the perfect person to lead this particular challenge. It wasn't about fancy techniques or culinary school credentials. It was about understanding the food and knowing how to get it out quickly and efficiently. Julia took the role seriously, delegated her teammates to different stations, and led the women to victory. And while Julia definitely deserves a major chunk of the credit, it was Mary Ann's decision to push that gave her the confidence she needed to prove she belonged in Hell's Kitchen. Plus, it showed everyone else that leadership isn't always about who talks the loudest, or who has the most impressive resume. Season 3 also gave us 2 perfect examples of Mary Ann's standards through her interactions with Bonnie, a contestant whose heart was in the right place, but whose execution was often catastrophic. The first incident happened during episode 7's punishment. The women had to handle delivery day, and Bonnie was trying to make sure they got everything they needed. But when they brought the deliveries inside, Julia noticed they had accepted boxes of turbot skeletons instead of whole fillets. That was bad enough, but it got worse.
Did you guys even check the order at all? Let me see the order sheet. We'll go through every single thing and see how many things you guys up.
After Mary Ann and Scott double-checked the list, they discovered the women had also accepted snapper fillets with no skin and unsalted butter instead of the salted variety they actually used. These mistakes forced the delivery truck to be called back late at night, creating extra work for everyone. Mary Ann was clearly annoyed, and not because Bonnie was trying to help, but because she hadn't been careful enough to verify what they were accepting. But the worst Bonnie incident came in episode 8, right before a crucial black jacket service. During prep, Bonnie thought some monkfish smelled rancid and threw it away, all 23 portions they had for service. Mary Ann lost it and chewed Bonnie out.
What are you doing? You threw away monkfish? It smelled awful. That was all that we have.
Mary Ann stares at the empty pan. 23 portions gone because Bonnie second-guessed instead of asking. Mary Ann doesn't say it, but the look on her face says this might be her last line in the sand. When season 4 rolls in, the Red Kitchen has a new sous chef at the pass, Gloria Felix. Mary Ann isn't there. No farewell speech, no montage. She just steps off the line, the first original staffer to do it, right as the show starts finding its rhythm. Many fans felt disappointed when Mary Ann was replaced on the Hell's Kitchen staff. Yet, in a 2007 interview, Mary Ann revealed something that fans probably didn't expect to hear. She admitted that the experience was incredibly frustrating for her, and reportedly disliked some of her time spent on Hell's Kitchen. Her biggest complaint was the lack of skills among contestants. Remember, this was the early days of Hell's Kitchen, when the show was still figuring out its casting approach. Many contestants came in with minimal professional experience, if at all. And Mary Ann found herself constantly dealing with chefs who simply weren't ready for the pressure of a professional kitchen. For someone who had dedicated her career to culinary excellence, watching contestant after contestant struggle with basic techniques must have been frustrating. This is probably because Mary Ann boasts an impressive resume. She received a culinary arts degree from the Institute of Culinary Education in New York, before working in several high-profile restaurants. The Institute of Culinary Education, known as ICE for short, highlighted her in a 2005 press release. She appeared as an alumna in the first season of Hell's Kitchen, alongside 3 contestants, Jimmy, Chris, and Wendy. Mary Ann reportedly revealed she only agreed to do the show because Gordon Ramsay had promised to help her set up her own restaurant. That promise was apparently what convinced her to take on the demanding role of sous chef for a reality TV show that was still finding its identity. On the Hell's Kitchen website at the time, Mary Ann's impressive resume was listed, indicating she had served as the executive chef at several prestigious restaurants in New York and Los Angeles, including René Pujol and Citizen Smith in Hollywood. However, it's unknown whether that restaurant opportunity actually came to fruition due to limited public information on Mary Ann's activities after Hell's Kitchen. She doesn't maintain a public presence on social media or in the culinary industry. It raises the question, will Mary Ann Salcedo ever return?